There are places where water does not refresh. Silence offers no comfort here. It warns. The sun's reflection on the surface can conceal eyes that watch without moving. These are territories where no one, in their right mind, should venture. And yet, there are people who are born, grow, and die there. Not by accident, not as punishment, but because they have learned something that almost no one else understands. What kind of knowledge is learned when escape is no longer an option? In the most remote corners of the planet, humans live alongside one of the oldest and most patient predators on Earth, the crocodile, an animal that does not run, does not shout, does not warn. It calculates. Its stillness is not passive. It is tactical. A crocodile can remain motionless beneath the water for long stretches, sometimes for hours, without surfacing to breathe, waiting for the precise moment to strike. For most people, this creature represents a constant threat. But for some cultures, the crocodile is not only danger, it is spirit. It embodies power, and in some places, even family. Today, you will discover how 8 tribes from Africa, Asia, and Oceania face, every single day, the silent presence of the crocodile, how they fish, navigate, prey, or step into the water in territories where a single blink can cost them their lives. If these real stories, where mistakes offer no second chances, interest you, subscribe to PlanetTribes and stay with us until the end. What you are about to see is not just survival. It is a way of life that challenges everything you think you know about fear and human strength. We begin this journey with those who carry, quite literally on their skin, the mark of one of the most lethal predators on the planet. 1. Chambri, skin as inheritance. Along the banks of the Sepik River in Papua New Guinea, water does more than sustain life. It defines identity. Here, the river is not a landscape. It is origin, boundary, and memory. In this region, communities such as the Chambri and other peoples of the Middle Sepik have lived alongside the crocodile for generations as an inseparable part of their world. This animal is not merely a predator lurking in murky waters. It is a founding being, a spiritual ancestor, a presence tied to the origin of humankind. According to Sepik traditions, the first men did not emerge from the earth, but from the body of a great mythical crocodile. And this belief is not passed down through words alone. It is carved, marked directly onto the skin. In various communities of this river region, when a young person is ready to leave childhood behind, the rite of passage is physical and real. During ceremonies that can last several days, the initiate's skin is deliberately cut using traditional blades. The incisions follow precise patterns that imitate the scales of the crocodile. These are not superficial wounds. They are designed to heal into visible, permanent raised scars. Afterward, the wounds are treated with ash, mud, and plant-based preparations, both to protect them and to reinforce the shape of the scars. There is no anesthesia. There are no shortcuts. Pain is not hidden, because here it is not punishment. It becomes transformation. Enduring it proves self-control, discipline, and belonging. The scars do not decorate. They certify who you are. For these peoples, skin does not only protect the body, it defines who you are in the eyes of others. But this relationship with the crocodile does not end with ritual. The animal is part of daily life, and coexisting with it demands constant attention. Every movement near the water is measured. From a young age, men learn to read the river's behavior. They observe the mud along the banks, fresh tracks, the unnatural stillness of the water. They know the crocodile does not attack by chasing, but from complete immobility. For this reason, the river is never entered impulsively. Before approaching, the water is struck with paddles or sticks to force the animal to move and reveal its position. If the river remains too still, they wait. If birds suddenly fall silent, they retreat. The canoes are narrow and light, not because of scarcity, but because they allow the paddler to feel the water. Paddling slowly without splashing reduces risk. Fishing is done in small groups. While some work, others watch. Attention is collective, because one person's mistake puts everyone in danger. When a crocodile approaches too close to a settled area, the response is not panic. Its behavior is interpreted. Only in extreme cases is it decided to hunt it, and never individually or impulsively. It is a communal decision, ritualized and heavy with meaning. Here, facing the crocodile does not mean defeating it. It means anticipating it, living alongside it without provoking conflict, trusting inherited memory more than brute strength. In these communities, fear is not eliminated. It is transformed into a way of living alert, in silence, in deep respect for an animal that can kill, but also teaches how to live with attention. And here, an inevitable question arises. If your identity depended on passing through fear instead of fleeing from it, would you do it? But not all cultures respond to danger in the same way. While in Papua New Guinea the crocodile is inscribed on the skin as a mark of origin and endurance, in West Africa there are communities that have learned something different, not to engrave it on the body, but to move alongside it, reading its rhythms, as if both shared the same river. 2. Bozo, Sorko, masters of the river and guardians of the Niger. In West Africa, the Niger River is not just a source of water. It functions as a continuous lifeline, a vital artery on which millions of people depend. For the Bozo and Sorko peoples, the Niger is not a resource. It stands at the absolute center of existence, the place where one is born, works, and, in many cases, dies. Both peoples have been known for centuries as masters of the water, not only because they navigate the river with skill, but because they have learned to read it, to interpret its changes in level, its color, its current, and its silences, through signs accumulated over generations. The Bozo, primarily settled in Mali, have been fishermen for countless generations. They live in floating villages or in settlements built directly along the riverbanks. Their lives revolve entirely around the Niger: fishing, trade, movement, and daily survival. For them, crocodiles are not exceptional creatures. They are legitimate inhabitants of the same home. No one tries to domesticate them, nor do they try to drive them away. Coexistence is learned through observation of their routines. They know where crocodiles rest, which areas they feed in, and during which seasons they become more territorial. This constant observation does not eliminate danger, but it makes it predictable. The Sorko, for their part, live farther east, near the inner Niger Delta. In addition to being fishermen, they are traditionally known as spiritual mediators of the river. Their relationship with the crocodile is not based on force, but on ritual and communal law. Some of their religious leaders perform ceremonies intended to protect the community and to maintain the river's code with the Nile crocodiles. The goal is not to control the animal, but to establish symbolic boundaries, zones where fishing is forbidden, times when the water must not be entered, periods when the river is left undisturbed. These rules are not arbitrary. They arise from generations of accumulated experience. When a crocodile must be hunted, it is never done impulsively or individually. It is a collective decision, justified and accompanied by rituals that acknowledge the gravity of the act. Because removing such an animal is not only a physical risk, It is the disruption of a balance that sustains the entire river. All of this knowledge is unwritten. It is transmitted in the canoe, during fishing, on long journeys, from father to son, from grandmother to grandchild, through stories, gestures, and silences, when the water changes. Here, survival does not mean dominating the environment. It means knowing when to move forward and when to remain still. But not all peoples limit themselves to coexistence and anticipation. In other parts of the world, some take their relationship with the crocodile to direct confrontation, risking everything for ritual, for respect, or for survival. Because facing an adult crocodile is not hunting an animal, it is measuring oneself against millions of years of evolution. 3. Ngala, hunters of colossi. In the Sepik River region of northern Papua New Guinea, fear is not an emotion that is hidden. It is a force that must be learned and controlled. For certain communities of the Middle Sepik, including clans locally known as the Ngala, the crocodile is not merely a spiritual symbol, it becomes a test, a real presence that defines who you are and how far you are willing to go for your community. For generations, some of these communities have practiced ritual crocodile hunting. This is not done for immediate subsistence, nor as simple self-defense. It carries a deep social meaning, to demonstrate self-control, courage, and the ability to assume extreme risk in order to protect and guide the group. Preparation begins long before entering the swamp. For weeks, young men train under the supervision of elders. They learn to read the river's behavior, to identify fresh tracks in the mud, to interpret irregular fish movements or the sudden silence of birds. Every sign matters, because in this environment, a single misreading can be fatal. When the moment arrives, the groups move into areas of dense vegetation, where the water is dark and crocodiles remain motionless among submerged logs and tangled roots. They advance in absolute silence, using only traditional weapons, fire-hardened wooden spears, hand-woven nets, and in some cases, knives, never firearms. This is not about extermination. It is about confrontation. The target is an adult crocodile. Capturing it alive is ideal, but not always possible. If it dies, it happens only as a last resort, and always under strict rules of respect. The hunt is extremely dangerous. A crocodile can strike with a speed that is difficult to anticipate, even for those who know the terrain well. There are real accounts of men who vanished beneath the water without a single cry, leaving no visible trace. The risk is known and accepted. Those who return successfully are not celebrated with euphoria. There is no glorification of danger. They are recognized as complete men in the eyes of the community, people who did not retreat, who understood that fear is not overcome through brute force, but through control, attention, and presence. The captured animal is never wasted. The skin may be used for ceremonial objects, such as drums. From the bones, tools of ritual value are made. Under specific conditions, the meat is shared, and its spirit is honored by being symbolically returned to the river. Because for these communities, even in death, the crocodile retains its power. And that power does not belong to humans. It returns to the water. Here, confronting fear is not an act of madness. It is a learned language, a direct dialogue with the wild, a way of remembering that there are forces that cannot be dominated, only respected. And now the question is direct. If you had to face danger without modern weapons, relying only on control and awareness, would you trust your judgment to survive? Because not everywhere is fear confronted. In some places, it is accepted. And while some measure themselves against the colossus face to face, in other parts of the world there are peoples who live alongside it every day, without weapons, without ceremonies, guided only by constant vigilance and the hope of returning home unseen. 4. Dasanak, silence between fangs. On the border between Ethiopia and Kenya lies Lake Turkana, one of the most arid, isolated, and hostile regions of the African continent. It is a volcanic lake with warm, murky waters, where visibility is minimal, and the shoreline shifts constantly with the seasons. In this environment lives the Dasanak people, a semi-nomadic community that has depended on the lake for centuries to survive. Here, water is not only a scarce resource, it represents a constant threat. Lake Turkana is home to one of the largest populations of Nile crocodiles in East Africa. Reptiles that can exceed 5 meters in length and use the turbidity of the water as perfect camouflage. And yet, daily life continues. Every day, men, women, and children approach the shore to collect water, wash, fish, or move between settlements. There are no safe routes. Contact with the lake is unavoidable. Imagine the scene. One person bends down to fill a container, another watches from a distance, and no one speaks. Not out of ritual, out of calculation. Because in a lake like this, even sound can betray you. In that moment, the greatest danger is not what is visible, but what remains exactly where it was. The survival of the Dasanak does not rely on weapons, fences, or eliminating the predator. It is based on a social system of collective vigilance built over generations. No one approaches the water without being watched. While one person carries out a task, others remain alert from a distance. They are not scanning for the crocodile itself. Their focus stays on the environment. Sudden changes on the water's surface, unnaturally still areas, shadows that do not match the movement of the sun, the abrupt reaction of birds or fish. This language is learned from childhood. Children grow up alongside adults and learn to distinguish when the lake allows passage and when it demands waiting. Decisions are never individual. If there is doubt, they retreat. In many cases, elders determine the right moment to move forward based on accumulated experience. Here, haste breaks the balance. When it is essential to cross a dangerous area, it is done in groups and with controlled speed. No shouting, no sudden movements. Silence is not superstition. It reduces vibrations and avoids attracting the predator's attention. This system does not eliminate risk, but it reduces unnecessary exposure and turns every action into a conscious decision. For the Dasanak, survival does not mean dominating the lake or challenging the crocodile. It means accepting that the environment sets limits and learning how to move within them. Here, intelligence is not measured by strength, but by the ability to stop in time, to observe, to wait. We are halfway through this journey, and if you are still here, it is because you have already understood something essential. If this is making you see the world through different eyes, stay with us and leave a like. From here on, what follows requires even more calm, more observation, and far less margin for error. In a place where water can kill in seconds, collective patience is the only thing that has allowed this people to continue existing, generation after generation. 5. Talensi, those who swim with the souls of the ancestors. In northern Ghana, near the border with Burkina Faso, lies the village of Paga, a place known for its singular relationship with one of Africa's most feared predators. Here, crocodiles are neither hunted nor chased. Instead, they are revered. people approach the water's edge, speak in low voices, and the animal does not flee. It remains still, as if it understands that a different rule applies here. In this region lives the Talensi people, a community that has developed, over generations, a deeply regulated and surprisingly peaceful coexistence with the crocodiles of Lake Paga. For them, these animals are not simple reptiles. They believe some are the reincarnation of their ancestors. This is not a cultural metaphor. It is a living belief that organizes their relationship with water, death, and memory. When an elder passes away, it is believed that their spirit may return, embodied in one of these sacred crocodiles. For that reason, they are neither disturbed nor attacked. They are recognized as carriers of a familiar presence. At specific moments, villagers speak to them and feed them according to precise rules, designed not to alter their natural behavior. On certain ritual occasions, some people enter the water knowing that large adult crocodiles rest there. They do not do so as a display of bravery or as spectacle. It is a ritual act that reaffirms the bond between the living and the dead. Recorded attacks in these waters have been rare over time, not because the crocodile has lost its instinct, but because coexistence is governed by strict rules. The lake is not entered at just any moment. No running, no shouting, no provocation. Before approaching the water, permission is requested from spiritual authorities, and each step of the ritual is followed with precision. For the Talensi, respect is not symbolic. It is a rule that orders the entire community. Here, the crocodile is neither a tolerated threat nor a decorative myth. It is part of the balance of the world, a silent guardian of collective memory. In Paga, fear does not govern decisions. Respect does. And when that respect is constant, even the most feared predator can become a protector. And if in Ghana, the crocodile is an ancestor who walks beside the living, in other parts of the world, it remains an ancestral presence, a living legend watching from the shadows. 6. Maupa, the guardian. Beneath the river. In some villages west of the Sepik River in Papua New Guinea, the crocodile is not perceived as a constant threat. It is recognized as a watching presence. In these areas of dense jungle, thick swamps, and rivers that frequently change course, live communities known locally as the Maupa. They are not an ethnic group defined in academic terms, but clan-based groups united by a shared oral tradition and a very specific spiritual relationship with the river. In their worldview, the crocodile is not merely an animal, it is a guardian spirit. They believe that certain stretches of the river are protected by a specific crocodile, linked to the clan that inhabits that area. No name is given, no one calls on it. Its presence is read through subtle signs, changes in the water, prolonged silences, the sudden absence of life along the bank. According to stories passed down by elders, approaching the river without respect or attention can have serious consequences, not as an immediate supernatural punishment, but as a warning. Whoever ignores the river's rules exposes themselves to the very real danger that lives beneath the surface. For this reason, the river is never crossed impulsively. It is crossed with care, with observation, with humility. Coexistence with real crocodiles is constant. They are there, visible at times, invisible most of the time. But the Maupa do not hunt them or challenge them, nor do they seek to prove their bravery. They believe there are forces that must not be touched, even when they are within reach, and this belief governs their daily behavior. Before entering the water, the surroundings are observed. They wait, they listen. If something does not feel right, they retreat. Here, Retreating is not cowardice, it is wisdom. This knowledge is not taught in schools. It is transmitted through stories. Stories told by the river, functioning as warnings and as invisible maps for returning home alive. Each story explains where a mistake occurred, which sign was ignored, and why it must never be repeated. For these communities, belief is not an abstract act. It is a concrete way of staying alive. When faith is born from the environment, from water, fear, and accumulated experience, it becomes a silent discipline, an invisible shield. And for many Maupa, that shield has a recognizable form, the crocodile watching from the depths of the river. But the relationship between humans and crocodiles does not end here. Beyond the Sepik, there are entire peoples whose history begins thanks to one of them. Or at least, that is what the memory of the elders preserves. 7. Fataluku, the grandchildren of the great crocodile. Before the island of Timor existed, according to oral tradition, there was only water. The sea covered everything. In that primordial world, a tired and hungry child drifted aimlessly, with no land in sight. That was when a great crocodile emerged from the depths, not to devour him, but to help him. The animal offered its back so the child could rest. Over time, the child cared for the crocodile, and a bond of gratitude grew between them. When the crocodile sensed that its end was near, it chose to return that care in the only way possible. It transformed itself into land. It stretched its body, hardened its skin, and thus, according to legend, the island of Timor was born. Since then, the Fataluku, one of the indigenous peoples of eastern Timor-Leste, and many other Timorese communities consider themselves symbolic descendants of that primordial crocodile. That is why they do not simply call it an animal. They call it grandfather. Lafayette Diak, the good crocodile. This story does not belong to the past or to schoolbooks. It is part of daily life. It appears in house murals, in traditional dances, in songs sung as the sun sets. It is engraved on ceremonial machetes, carved in wood, and painted in communal spaces. But above all, it lives in the taboos that regulate the relationship with water. A crocodile may only be killed in situations of extreme necessity. Rivers are never crossed without first acknowledging its presence, even in silence. And the animal that, according to tradition, gave birth to everyone's home is never disrespected. These rules are not mere symbols. They function as clear boundaries that organize coexistence with a real and dangerous predator. Children grow up hearing that the crocodile does not only swim, it watches. That it inhabits not only the river, but history itself. And that those who forget their origin lose their way. Within this worldview, fear is reordered. It transforms into gratitude and responsibility. If the crocodile created the island, then the entire land is part of its body. Walking upon it requires respect. Living on it requires memory. That is why the Fataluku do not see the crocodile as a monster. They understand it as ancient blood, not as a distant memory, but as something that still breathes beneath the water, as a link between the past, the present, and what is yet to come. Honoring that origin is not a symbolic gesture. It is a way of honoring life. And, to close this journey, we return to the heart of the Sepik, where art, memory, and the spirit of the crocodile meet once again in the same place, where the river still speaks in its own voice. 8. Iatmil, where the river speaks with a voice of scales. In the heart of the Sepik River, where the waters do more than flow, they preserve memory, lives one of the peoples most deeply connected to the crocodile, the Iatmul. For the Iatmul, The crocodile is not just another animal in the environment. It is an ancestor, a protector, a force that connects the visible world with the spiritual one. Their worldview revolves around this silent and powerful presence. They believe the crocodile acts as a mediator between the living and the spirits, and that part of its essence resides within every person. That is why their relationship with the river is not merely practical, it is profoundly symbolic. This connection is constantly expressed through art and ritual. The Iatmul do not only venerate the crocodile, they represent it. Their ceremonial masks, hand-carved with extraordinary precision, display elongated faces and deep eyes that evoke the reptile's unmoving gaze. Many of these masks embody guardian crocodiles and are used in ritual dances that mark the cycles of life, growth, death, and renewal. The eldest men, regarded as keepers of knowledge, bear names inherited from mythical crocodiles associated with lineage and territory. And in their sacred houses, known as the House Tambaran, the ceilings and beams are covered with carvings that fuse human, animal, and spirit into a single form. But this symbolism is not separated from daily reality. Real crocodiles are present every day. They swim in the same channels where the Iatmul collect water, fish, bathe, and teach their children to paddle. Coexistence is constant, and the risk is real. There is no panic. There is conscious control and constant respect. Every movement near the water is slow and deliberate. Nothing is done in haste. Children learn from a very young age to read the river's signals. Bubbles that should not be there, sudden silences, shadows that do not follow the logic of the current. They know danger exists, always, but they also know that balance depends on attention. For the Iatmul, it is not about defeating the crocodile or ignoring it. It is about understanding it and accepting it as part of the same reflection of the world in which they live. There is a saying among the elders that sums up this way of life by the river. The crocodile sees you before you see it. It is not a threat, it is a warning. It means that nature does not respond to noise or force, but to the ability to observe before acting. Here, survival is not just about staying alive. It is about learning to move with the environment, not against it. Knowing when to advance and when to let the river decide. Because in this part of the Sepik, the crocodile does not need to roar to make its presence known. It only needs to glide beneath the water, and everything comes to a halt. And so we reach the end of this journey. 8 peoples, 8 different ways of living alongside fear, power, and one of the oldest predators still walking and swimming on Earth. They all live in different environments, with their own cultures and rituals, but they share something essential: transmitted knowledge, learned respect, and adaptation forged over generations. Because in these waters, danger does not always strike suddenly. Sometimes it glides in silence. It watches, it evaluates, and it decides. The crocodile does not belong to the world of myth. It is not a creature of the past. It is present, right now, in the rivers of the Niger, in the channels of Papua, in African lakes, and along the coasts of the Pacific. And those who live beside it do not underestimate it. They understand it. From ritual scars carved into the skin in Papua to the sacred baths of Ghana, these stories reveal a truth that repeats again and again. Survival does not depend on strength, but on the ability to observe, anticipate, and respect. In every tribe, there is a warning. In every river, a lesson that allows no mistakes. Because the first crocodiles already inhabited Earth more than 230 million years ago, when dinosaurs were only beginning to appear and mammals did not yet exist. Here, the crocodile is not just an animal. It stands as living memory. It remains spirit. And it is proof that fear, when understood, ceases to be an enemy. This was not just a journey through remote cultures. It was a journey through one of humanity's deepest questions: how to keep living when each day could be the last. Now the question is for you. If your survival depended on it, which of these tribes would you trust with your life, and why? If this journey has left something within you, stay with us. The next one may take us even farther. And if you know someone who should see this, share it. Write the keyword of this episode in the comments: crocodile. That way, we'll know you too learned how to move where the water does not forgive. See you at the next destination.